I kindly request the Honorable Minister, Her Excellency Ms. Aminath Shauna, the Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Technology from the Government of Maldives, to begin the conference by sharing the vision of the government. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Minister of Finance, Ibrahim Amir. Minister of Economic Development, Ustaz Fayaz Ismail. Minister of Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment, Government of Seychelles, Mr. Fabian Huber. Country Director for Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka, the World Bank, Mr. Faris. Practice Manager Energy South Asia, the World Bank, Mr. Simon Stolp. Colleagues from Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, distinguished delegates from the Ministry of Environment, the Utility Regulatory Authority, STO, STELCO and FENACA, colleagues from multilateral developmental banks, private financing institutions and project developers, Global Director for Transport and Regional Director for Infrastructure in South Asia, the World Bank, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you. I would like to thank the forum organizer for hosting this important gathering. It is particularly important for the Maldives because our country's energy challenges are so enormous. The Maldives depends entirely on imported fossil fuels, primarily diesel, for its energy needs. This is particularly problematic for us. We are at the mercy of volatile global energy markets over which we have no control. The imported diesel cost us a fortune, which we have to pay in hard currency, which puts pressure on the Maldivian rupiah. Our islands are scattered across the sea, making economies of scale very difficult and thus the price of electricity even more costly. In 2019, our national fuel bill was about 7 billion rupiah. That's about $450 million US dollars. About 80% of this went on importing diesel, which was used for boats and to generate electricity. Furthermore, our power grids are creaking. We see a lot of energy losses because of our aging infrastructure and the use of inefficient appliances. And of course, the government subsidizes electricity, which means the cost to the national budget is enormous, especially when the oil prices rise as it is right now. In 2019, we spent over 1 billion rupiah on electricity subsidies alone. Considering all of this, it is no surprise that the government's policy is to quit fossil fuels as quickly as possible and replace it with something the Maldives has in abundance: sunshine. This transition from an economy run on diesel to one largely powered by solar is set out in Government Strategic Action Plan, which in turn is based on the 2018 election manifesto on which the President was elected. The plan identifies key strategies such as increasing energy storage, integrated utility models, and the development of legal and regulatory framework to promote renewable energy. It also includes the need for capacity building, better data collection, and demand-side efficiency. Furthermore, earlier this year, the President announced a new national goal for the Maldives to reach net zero emissions by the end of this decade. In short, this means we need to decarbonize our electricity systems as quickly as humanly possible. This will require large amounts of foreign capital and investment. And as I'm sure you know, there's a major problem for the Maldives when it comes to deploying the large amounts of renewable energy needed to quit fossil fuels. The problem is our cost of borrowing, the cost of capital. Political instability, high debt levels, and the effects of climate change has left us with high borrowing costs. This is in particular is a problem for renewable energy, which in effect requires the purchaser to buy 20 years worth of electricity on day one. The cost of capital of a renewable energy project is paramount to its economic viability. This is why many island nations face an energy paradox. Even though renewable energy produces a unit of electricity cheaper than fossil fuels, our countries do not have access to cheap capital required to install renewable energy at the required scale. The requirement for cheap capital is, of course, an area where development banks can play a key role in supporting the Maldives, in particular underwriting the risk of investment. We also face other challenges, some of which are a result of our unique geography. The first is land, more specifically, lack of land. Installing solar is easy if your city happens to be located next to an enormous desert, for example. But our major problem centers in crowded islands where every available scrap of land is already in use. There is roof space available for solar PV, but not enough to power, for example, a city like Male. The government is therefore going to use lagoons as a place where we can install floating banks of solar panels, an emerging technology that is showing a lot of promise. Secondly, we previously had an issue of grid absorption. Thankfully, we have improved this by deploying battery energy storage systems. This is an area of public sector investment that is growing with support from development partners. We can now scale up PV project capacities to go beyond 100% of the peak demand of the grid. As of today, over 50% of energy offset is possible in the Maldives. There is a level that could not be previously achieved. Beyond this, we want to diversify the type of energy sources we use. There is already an 8 megawatt and 1.5 megawatt waste to energy project in the pipeline. This also leads to co-benefits of reducing waste while also providing a reliable source of electricity that can be fed into the grid. Furthermore, under the diversification strategy, we continue to explore potential of other renewable sources, including wind, ocean currents, wave, and green hydrogen. The energy demand for the transport sector is expected to be partly addressed through mainstreaming of electric vehicles and the establishment of public transport systems. Despite the many challenges, we can point to successes, especially in the deployment of solar. The net metering regulation was recently updated. The net metering system was recently updated, and public investment has also been progressing in small islands for both solar PV and storage systems. Large-scale private sector investments have also increasingly been deployed. With only 200 kilowatt of pilot projects in 2018, we now have a total of 31.5 megawatt of solar PV installed throughout the country, with the largest projects fully funded through the private sector. From 2018 to 2019 alone, there was a growth of 50% of solar installed PV capacity. Through the efforts of the ministry with the support from the World Bank, the Maldives has leveraged private investments for 2 installments to date, resulting in a record low PPA price of 10.9 cents per kilowatt hour. This was achieved with the help of an international competitive bidding process supported by risk mitigation packages to investors. A robust standard commercial agreement framework was developed specifically to these PV projects, taking into account international best practices. This tariff is close to half of the cost we currently spend to produce electricity from diesel, and we expect even lower prices in the future. In our audience today, we have representations from various multilateral development banks, private financing institutions, private sector developers, along with government representatives from small island developing states. So I feel this is the ideal platform and an opportune time to think about the next steps and work together in taking the Maldives towards energy security and net zero. Today, we have 3 islands in the Maldives fully powered by solar energy during the day. The plan is to make sure every island is run on sunshine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. It was indeed inspiring to learn about the various initiatives of the government of Maldives that will help ensure a safe and sustainable future for its citizens.